Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Sports. I'm Sean. So this week in sports, Rutgers fired their head basketball coach Mike Rice because of some video evidence of him demeaning and abusing his players over the last couple years that he's been there. He was hitting them with basketballs, grabbing them, pushing them, shoving them, getting in their faces, calling them names, homosexual slurs. The list goes on and on. The videos of this were very, very incriminating. He has since apologized, and hopefully he will take everything happening as a wake-up call and start to change his ways. Hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed on that one. But at the same time, he's also due a $100,000 bonus because he made it through the basketball season. When this first all came out, he was actually suspended and fined $75,000. But because of, in lieu of everything else adding up, piling on, he was actually let go. Do you think that you guys think that he should still be due the $100,000 bonus because he made it through the season? Or is everything added up, is it bad enough already as it is and he should be just let go and they should just wash their hands of him? Because in my opinion, a contract is a contract. What he did was terrible, and no players deserve what he did, and it's tough for me to really fall on either side of it right now. So I definitely have to think about this one. And like I said, no players ever deserve what he did to them, and it's a travesty of what happened. All right, second story in basketball news, NCAA basketball news, is the Kevin Ware story. He's a player, sophomore guard for Louisville. And during a game this last week, he jumped to block a shot, came down on his leg wrong, broke his tibia, compound fracture, broke through the skin. Very disturbing pictures and video. I saw the pictures, and I don't know if I can go back to watch the video. People saw this. People started crying. There, people throwing up on the sidelines. It was just one of the worst injuries, they say, since possibly Joe Theismann when Lawrence Taylor busted his leg up. Now, not good news, but the comforting news that came from this is while he saw this happening with his teammates crying on the floor, head down, couldn't look, things like that nature, he called his team together. He put the pain aside and said, "I'll be all right." He told his teams to go out and win this game for him, to go out and win this game. That he's going to be all right, he's going to play another day, but to go out and win this game. They actually went out and won the game. News is that Kevin Ware is now, he had surgery the next day, they put a rod in there, and he is now up and at it. He's not walking yet, of course, but he is healing just fine, and they don't expect this to be a career-ending injury. So in a Cinderella story of life and football in the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons signed Brian Banks to a deal. He was a star player in high school who was accused of raping a girl. He ended up spending 5 years in prison and got 5 years of probation. Now, this is really terrible news, but what the good came out of it is that he was able to deal with everything. He came to terms with everything. After getting out of prison, the girl that accused him of rape actually came forward, contacted him through Facebook, came forward and said that he never did that. He never raped her, he never harmed her, he never touched her. So his slate was wiped clean, his name is clean now. And since then, he's been trying to get back into playing shape. Last year, he had some tryouts with some teams, but nobody signed him. Atlanta was definitely interested, but because it was so close to the season, they weren't able to sign him. This year, though, because they had the tryouts far enough ahead, they actually signed him to a free agent contract. They really want to give him a shot. He's been working out with Jay Glazer, doing a lot of MMA training, stuff like that. Jay Glazer actually finds his story so inspirational of how he's come back from this 5 years in prison, 5 years probation, being falsely accused of something, and he's actually been helping him out, putting his name out there in hopes of getting him a tryout. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more news about Brian Banks, and hopefully he can make the team, if at least the practice squad, so he can still have a shot of getting on an NFL roster someday. So that's really good news. In other NFL news, free agency continues. You have a bunch of moves. You had in Seattle, you had Matt Flynn leaving. He actually went down to Oakland to be starting quarterback there. Starting quarterback Carson Palmer actually went down to Arizona. Arizona lost their two guys, Skelton and Cobb. Skelton went to Cincinnati. Obviously, he's going to be a back over there behind Andy Dalton, and Cobb went to Buffalo. Earlier in free agency, Buffalo actually cut Fitzpatrick because he was due a big roster bonus. And then you also got a couple other key players going around. From the Eagles, you have Nnamdi Asomugha. He actually goes over to San Francisco. You have Brent Grimes from Atlanta going over to Miami. And the biggest news of all, free agency this last week, it was last Friday after my videos were posted, I could not talk about it, was the Tony Romo contract extension. He had 1 year left on this contract, and it was going to cost the Cowboys about $16 million. The Cowboys' hands were already forced earlier this free agency to restructure some contracts so they could keep their outside linebacker Anthony Spencer, who was actually probably their best player on defense last year. They're going to keep him. They signed him to the franchise tag. They're going to move him down to defensive end. So they already were forced to do that, restructure a bunch of contracts. But without restructuring Tony's contract, they wouldn't be able to do any more movements this free agency. And they also needed to make room for the draft picks later on, to April 25th, 26th, 27th. So this move, it's going to give him 6 years, $108 million, $55 million guaranteed, just a few more guaranteed than Joe Flacco. There are a lot of praisers and haters of this contract. The haters saying, you know, going to the NFL memes, pictures of Romo doing this, doing that, saying he's not worth it, and more words to that effect. The praise is that it's actually a good contract for where he lies in the rankings of quarterback. He's a second-tier quarterback. And it falls right in there where Joe Flacco is, where Matt Ryan, you know, right in that 5 to 10 area. So he's being paid about where a lot of people say he should be being paid. What this move does, though, it helps the Cowboys out, because instead of being charged $16 million this year, they're only being charged $5 million. They're actually going to be able to restructure some other years in the contract at later dates possible, and the last couple years of the contract, they are voidable. They have some things in there that can allow for easier restructuring of the contract. So it doesn't mean that he's going to be getting $108 million just because it's $108 million. That is the life of the contract. $55 million is guaranteed. The Cowboys could always cut and accelerate it and be hit from the guaranteed money, but it doesn't guarantee it. So I feel the Cowboys needed to make this move. They did good in making the move so they can make other moves in free agency and in draft. And they kept their quarterback. When you have a quarterback that is a franchise quarterback, you need to pay him to keep him. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling for years and years trying to find one and hoping that whenever you draft one, it'll be a hit. So Cowboys did some good moves. It's questionable. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below what you guys think of all the free agent moves, the Tony Romo contract extension, the Brian Banks story, Kevin Ware rallying his troops, as well as the Rutgers coach Rice getting fired and whether or not he should deserve that $100K bonus. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in Sports, guys. Remember to click your like, share, subscribe buttons down below. Leave your comments, questions, inquiries, and let's get this conversation started off right, guys. We'll see you next week.